As much as I want to be more topical, I'm just not ready to talk about David Bowie yet. Transphobia at the Golden Globes, however, is something I've already had to unfriend a dozen people over. I unfriended people because I had to, because somebody has to take some kind of action, and cis people simply aren't going to do it. Either you didn't notice that Ricky Gervais was paid handsomely to mock us at this year's Golden Globes because transphobia isn't really on your radar, or you did see it or hear about it and don't really care. Either way, that's a problem. Of course, I posted on Facebook explicitly about Gervais being transphobic to give my so-called friends a reasonable opportunity to assess their admiration for him and for his sorry excuses for humor. And it's not as if trans people are the sole targets of his abuse anyway, but I guess none of that matters. Unsurprisingly, the sole response was from a fellow trans person being appropriately grossed out. He described Gervais' so-called jokes as lazy and very Republican uncle on Thanksgiving. That's accurate. But Gervais is like your horrible Republican uncle who's being given an international platform to promote his bigotry under the guise of comedy. Gervais is your horrible Republican uncle on stages and televisions around the world, peddling his attitude that deliberately hurting marginalized people is the epitome of comedic sophistication. And if you disagree, you're nothing but a weak, stupid bitch who deserves to be raped to death. Just look at the comments on any clip of him. I know it seems like such a little thing, such an insignificant, mundane act, to click over to a sexist, transphobic celebrity's Facebook page and unlike it. But it's precisely that relative insignificance that highlights how little cis people value our lives. Think about it. We're not even worth going so far out of your way and shouldering such a terrible burden as unliking a Facebook page. The fact that cis people who are ostensibly my friends cannot even be bothered to do that shows how they truly feel. Because anyone can claim they're totally okay with trans people. Anyone can claim they support the rights and lives of trans people. But while you talk rather than act, trans people are dying. More often than not, you don't say anything at all. My own experience has not been one of beatings or shouted slurs yet. My experience of transphobia is an overwhelming amount of absolutely nothing. For me, transphobia is a deafening silence. It's a complete absence of some of the most basic things in life, like income and affection. Because I make cis people uncomfortable, they usually do their best to simply pretend I don't exist. Most transphobia isn't just not physical violence and not premeditated. Most of it isn't anything cis people are consciously aware of at all. It's unthinking, it's automatic, and it's unnoticed, at least by cis people. Even when it doesn't register consciously for us, it does damage anyway. And your casual abuse is a kind of approval for those who wish to punish us more overtly. Just as cracking rape jokes normalizes sexual violence, any personal or professional mistreatment of trans people, however oblique, subtle, or unintentional, makes it okay for other cis people to assault us, to murder us, and to legislate against us. Your silence condemns us. Your silence is consent to our destruction. Your inaction makes all this permissible. Your inaction is a form of intolerance. Again, I want to ask cis people to stop lying. Please just stop lying to yourselves, to each other, and to us. Please stop saying, I'm totally okay with trans people, or I don't see how gender makes any difference, or I don't care if someone's trans or whatever, because you do care, but don't realize it. So you're hurting people without meaning to. Unlike Ricky Gervais, who is adored and well paid to be harmful on principle. I also want to reassure cis people that it's okay for you to confront your unconscious transphobia and work through it. What's not okay is pretending that your transphobia doesn't exist. Unconscious prejudice isn't like catching a cold, something you just let it run its course and it clears up on its own. It's like cancer. The longer you ignore it, the more destructive it becomes.